Okay. Okay, should I go ahead and get started?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes, it's recording. Okay, great. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick. It's going to take a second. Okay, can everyone see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, great. So I'll be doing Al Gore's Truth in Pen presentation. I shortened it to maybe 5-ish minutes, but it's the global perspective of the climate crisis and some of its solutions. So I'm going to go over 3 main questions today. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? So I'll start with must we change? This is a picture of the Earth's atmosphere, and it really just shows how incredibly thin it is. And one analogy of how thin it is essentially like a varnish over a globe. And yet we are spewing 162 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into this thin shell every 24 hours as if it was an open sewer. So this is equivalent to exploding 600,000 atomic bombs every day, 365 days a year. So there are many different sources of these greenhouse gases, the making of plastics, mining, transportation, and others. But the biggest source is the burning of fossil fuels. And this graph shows how extremely it has increased over the years since 1850 to 2020 in this graph. It's going up in a very reckless and dangerous way. And this shows the increase in temperature. And you can see it's almost like the same trajectory as the burning of fossil fuels. The pattern is extremely clear. So on a global basis, 93% of the extra heat that's being trapped goes into the ocean. So one of the effects of this is worse hurricane seasons. And one of the many bad effects of worse hurricane seasons is driving people out of their homes. This photo shows the 2020 hurricane season drove 10,000 additional migrants out of Central America. This is just a reminder to us that it's the poor people of the world are the ones who are the most affected. And Pope Francis has pointed this out repeatedly. Another example, flooding in the US disproportionately impacts Black neighborhoods. So this is an issue of environmental injustice, and it's why Climate Reality has partnered with the new Poor People's Campaign to lift up these issues of environmental injustice. And I could go on about the extreme weather catastrophes that have been happening, but this graph kind of sums it all up. The extreme temperatures, droughts, fires, floods, mudslides, and storms have all been on that same upward trajectory. And we're also at risk of losing up to 50% of all land-based species in this century. So yes, we must change, as we all knew. So the next question is, can we change? And there is really good news because we do have lots of solutions at hand. In 2000, the best projections for wind energy were that we might be able to reach 30 gigawatts by 2010. And in actuality, we exceeded that by a factor of 24 times. And you see the trajectory upwards of US wind energy capacity. It's accelerating dramatically. Solar energy is actually even more exciting. In 2002, the projections were that we would reach 1 gigawatt per year by 2010, and we exceeded that 17 times over. And in 2020, we exceeded that 142 times over. So the US solar capacity has increased dramatically. And one of the reasons for this is because of the cost is decreasing dramatically. It is cheaper, solar energy is cheaper than electricity from burning fossil fuels. And the good news is we'll never run out. We get enough energy from the sun every hour as the entire global economy uses in a year. Also, batteries are improving, so we can store this energy better. And this is the current projection. And based on how we have exceeded our projections, it could be even beyond our wildest dreams, better than this. So this is a new trillion-dollar industry. And just based on our society, things that are good for the economy appeal to, you know, the world as a whole. So that is good news that it's good for the economy. Transportation, so partly because batteries are improving, all of these companies are switching to electric vehicles, so it's really catching on. GM was one of the recent companies that committed to go all electric. And then you can see the trend of using electric cars is also going up. Hopefully it will continue to go up. So yes, we can change. The most important question is, will we change? One great news is that we were able to rejoin the Paris Agreement after Joe Biden was elected and inaugurated. Again, it's just, fossil fuels just aren't a good investment anymore in the economy. They're just not good investments. And many global companies have made the commitment to go 100% renewable. Hopefully that will keep increasing. And young people around the world are demanding a brighter and better, safer future. This is Tennessee, Michigan, Kenya, Uganda, India, Spain, Indonesia, and there are so many others. So it is our responsibility to use our voices, our votes, and our choices for a better world. Speak truth to power like your world depends on it, because our world depends on it. Thank you.
Really, really nice job. I'm going to share my screen now. Thank you so much, Hannah. I need to come up now. Here we go. There we go. Hannah, thank you so much. Every time I see that, you know, I realize that, so when we have given this presentation before, you and I are speaking to people who we're preaching to the choir.
Yes.
But I feel very much as though our hope is to teach the choir to sing, to use their voices, because this is really where, you know, the thing about climate change is that, and the situation that we're encountering is it's boots on the ground. It really is. It's people really getting involved. And when Hannah and I met, she and I are both part of the social justice committee group at Bethany. And we both discovered this real strong passion for climate change. Hannah had gone through Al Gore's leadership program, and therefore she was, a leader in that, in looking at the perspective worldwide. And I recognized that that what our church was really kind of needing and looking for were things that people could do right away to walk into. That so often we feel as though, we don't know what to do. And so I've been attending meetings at the 47th Ward Green Council, and I went to a meeting that had all this information about not only what was available in the 47th Ward, but also citywide. So that's when Hannah and I decided to put together this presentation together, because there really is a climate crisis, and it is what they call a code red. And the climate reality presentation really is an assessment of the global perspective. But what we're trying to do here is to kind of look at what we can do every day. So our hope was to kind of look at the different cross-section of issues that we see any given day. This is what the kinds of issues that deal with the environment that are seen every day in the Washington Post, a paper that I kind of keep track of these issues with, but also what it is with the church. So Hannah and I created a presentation for Bethany that would be geared for our United Church of Christ a congregation. And that's why we're sort of started with this. So we felt strongly that we wanted our work in social justice and eco-justice to really look at seeing God in creation and understanding this from a national UCC perspective. We came across this book, it's called Cathedral on Fire, which is an excellent book that really helps us understand as Christians the theological responsibility we have as having God in us, God in creativity, being responsible. And we are unique in that responsibility. We are humans and we have the ability to be responsible. And so we are called, and I have to read this because it helps me get out of old paradigms of my faith and press into new paradigms. And I love it. He writes, as I further reflected on this, I came to realize that sometimes, challenging and agonizing as it might be, we need to consider our faith from a fresh perspective, as if seeing our faith for the first time. And I feel that that's a way of really opening up our eyes and our awarenesses to what we can do. And I love this call. I see it as a call to love God in creation as a personal and a public action. So it's something that we're hoping to do to help people with in this presentation. So kind of step one was kind of when we're living in a community, we live in the 47th Ward, where are green projects going on already? And where could they happen? And they pretty much happen everywhere. And they are happening in different places to different degrees. So we might look at this kind of cross-section of the different places in our environment that we participate in all the time. So where can we go green? And there's a lot of places to go green. So an infinite number. Fortunately, in the 47th Ward, our Alderman Matt Martin is a progressive, forward-thinking person. And he has worked together to develop the 47th Ward Green Council. We're very fortunate to have a Green Council in our ward because it draws people from all different backgrounds who can advocate for environmental policies. So this is a very active group that people take it very seriously, and we're very fortunate to have them as leaders. I just have to take a sip here. How's everything going so far? Can you hear me okay? Everything's all right?
Excellent.
Okay, good. So here what happened in this ward, and I really appreciate this because they have a climate energy declaration. So in 2019, the ward declared a climate emergency, calling on the Martin and the City Council to do the same. And they put together a resolution that they enacted in 2020 and they approved by the full City Council. And what they said was, the city must act like it's an emergency. But act like it's an emergency. And while we seek to educate people, we also need to take action. We need to know that action, that individual action particularly is not enough. We need to take collective action. We need to seek systemic changes. We need to look where the polluters are happening in all aspects of our lives, not just in our personal lives, but in the way our lives intersect with other parts of our lives. What's happening in the hospital, what's happening in the grocery store, what's happening wherever we are. So it's being able to really look at where those intersections are. And I felt that this was a particularly important declaration, and I want to just read a couple parts of it. The first is the declaration says, today we face an existential crisis. What that means is our existence is in crisis. That's a serious thing when it's an existential crisis. That means existence as we know it is in crisis. This is pretty serious. And then it goes on to talk about the different aspects that we talked about earlier, the different things that are happening with diseases and droughts and all those different things. But then the part that really struck me, again, and I said this in earlier presentations, is that in this declaration is saying restoring a safe and stable climate requires an emergency mobilization on the scale not seen since World War II in order to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I won't promise I'll keep this short, but my parents were both in World War II. They were active. My mother was in the Royal Air Force. My father was in England, an officer, and believe me, when they mobilized, they mobilized. There was no questions asked. Everybody was boots on the ground. This is what this is calling us to. So we need to really think, what are we doing in order to make that happen? And so, again, the declaration says that this is something that is a threat to all of us and that we need to commit to a mobilizing effort. So that is what the Green Council is focused on. And so they have a variety of ways that they discussed, particularly at this meeting that I went to, of ways to get involved in our ward. So it's really a matter of the will, because the ways to get involved are there. It's identifying those ways that are meaningful to you, number one, and number two, not to try to do all of them. Because if everybody does their part in a certain way, in the way that they can relate to, then that's how it's going to get done. And it's kind of like turning up the thermometer in a room, changing the temperature. If everybody gets involved, it will change. It will. It's kind of like David and Goliath. We have to go forward in this with confidence. We will have to make this happen. This is not a question of if we will, it's when we will and how we will. So these are the different initiatives in our ward, and starting with composting, food rescue. There's a lot going on here in recycling with different neighborhood pop-ups, different private recycling enforcement. That's a big issue in our ward. We'll talk a little bit more about organizing for plastics alternatives and the legislation around that. And then the City of Chicago waste reports. So there's just a lot of opportunities here for composting. A representative was there from the University of Illinois talking about the many different ways that we can set up composting, either community composting or curbside pickups. So I must say, let me just also say, I have a resource list that I either has been handed out to you if you're there, or that will be emailed to you. So anything that I'm referencing here about reading more about different options or websites, you will have the link to all of this. So you don't need to take any notes. You'll have a handout that will link you to all these different websites. And honestly, these websites are amazing. The amount of work that people are doing and the good work is very inspiring. So you'll enjoy reading some of these. So then food rescue. This is a concept of salvaging food. There's a lot of wasted food in our culture. I think I've read up to 40% of food is wasted. So in order to help mitigate that problem and to get food where it's supposed to be, there are different ways to do it. Working with restaurants, grocery stores, food delivery services, I mean, the multitude of ways that food can be rescued is taken on by these groups. And then I don't know how many of you, I try to recycle. I will admit I'm not the greatest recycler, but I do try. But then there's all these other things that we don't know what to do with. We don't know what to do with old batteries, old makeup jars, old shampoo bottles that maybe are not designated for recycling, old sneakers. It's the picture there, just stuff that we don't know what to do with. These local pop-up recycling places are places that you can go to take your things and leave them. And I've been to one over at North Center. They have it. They had one there over by the CVS at Irving Park and Damon there. And it was just a great day, and everybody was out bringing their things. So it's really a collective community effort, and really quite an active one. I say they have food vendors and stuff like that. So they kind of make a day of it. For those of you who are concerned about what we read about, the lack of really good, solid private recycling, the necessity to enforce that, there's a whole program kind of going on around that. And the report is mentioned in my list, so you can read about that. That comes through Streets and Sanitation. And then there's a way to get involved with the people who are doing that through the 47th Ward Green Council. So there's definitely a way to have, if it bothers you, if you see in your neighborhood that all these things are going on, there's a way for you to get involved to help see that that is being attended to. So I think for some people, that's real important. And then this is a really, really great website, the Organizing for Plastics Alternatives. These folks are so dedicated to really finding ways that are alternatives to not just replacing plastic usage with other types of materials, but figuring out ways to break free from plastics in different ways. And there's a plastics bill that Senator Tammy Duckworth has in Washington that you can follow up on. There's a survey you can use on plastics that you can take to your grocery store or wherever you go. So there are ways to get involved. I highly recommend the Organizing for Plastics Alternatives website. There's just all kinds of different ways to intersect with them. And then just as a personal thing in your own life, just most of you are probably doing a lot of this, but just recognizing, bringing your own shopping bags and ordering out sustainably, using restaurants that don't overuse plastics, telling the restaurant to keep their plastics when they get there and you get carry out. And all you really want is just the paper. You don't want to have any of the plastic. So that's a good one. Then there's this other thing that I want to mention. And so the Illinois Environmental Council is also another great website to go to. They have all kinds of initiatives going on. And I'll go back to this one in just a second, but they have all kinds of programs dealing with environmental justice, a listing of all the current legislation that's going on, dealing with environmental racism, the social justice piece of that. There's just a lot going on their website that I think covers sort of a vast spectrum of environmental issues and ways for you to get involved. Then also, I want to say that just recently on February 15th, the League of Women Voters, that's another really great website to go to kind of keep up on environmental issues because they are on top of things. They just recently had there's a thing, it's a plastics reform, the styrofoam reform. It's House Bill 3067. And they are currently working on different public actions dealing with that bill. That bill is meant to get rid of all styrofoam. And it's one of the most toxic kinds of things that we can get for handouts. And it's just something that for carry out, it's something that's important to have this be a first step toward greater plastics reduction. One of the things that has come up in some conversations is that sometimes we have so much to do that it seems so big. And these local small businesses and restaurants particularly, their bottom line is so thin that we have to find other ways to work with them so that we can make this legislation happen. It's a really tough thing to do. So I would suggest you go on the Illinois Environmental Council website and see how you can get involved. And they also had something, and I tried to keep up with them, to reach them last week. They have a citywide advocacy thing built up that has materials that they can send out to you that you can use to help to promote passing the policy. These are outreach materials. So when you contact, or if you go to that Environmental Council website, you could look for those advocacy materials. They may be able to share them with you. So then finally, kind of to wrap that up, I would recommend, you know, if you're serious about this, I think reading the executive report, the summary report of Chicago's waste strategy, honestly, for the nerds in of us, it's very interesting reading, because you see not just our waste strategy in terms of our personal lives, but of industrial waste and all the manufacturing waste, diesel waste, transportation waste, all these other things. And the city is very intentional, wants to be very intentional about this. And so the way that can help that is for our citizens to become aware of what they're trying to do and make it a priority. So I suggest downloading it and reading it. I want to go on a little bit further now, try to hurry this up a little bit, but there are these working groups through the 47th Ward Green Council that you can plug into. So very quickly, there's an energy working group that deals with solar ambassadors, all the issues around electric vehicles, different energy efficiency sources, and sustainable development. You can join that group. And there's another group that's the nature working group for those who are really working about species and animals and plants, and they're really working with that. That's another great group to get involved with. And then the waste working group, this is another very active group who's very intentional about figuring out what we can do in the 47th Ward to really not only handle these problems, but then to be a model for other communities. So that's another really wonderful thing about this Green Council. And then I just wanted to say, Emanuel will be giving some comments at the end of our presentation about youth, but I just wanted to say I did contact the 47th Ward, and there are a number of upcoming activities for groups. There's the Sunrise Movement, which is a youth movement to help stop climate change. And they're going to be having an active program that you can sign up for on March 3rd. And they're going to be a place for you to register there. It's a whole movement, a national movement around sustainability and the climate crisis. And then there's also another activity coming up on the 26th at St. Ben's through the North Center, a neighborhood association. And then also the 7 Generations Ahead school program on composting. There's a way to get involved there. And then there's ways to get involved with planting a corner garden or organizing neighborhood cleanup. So I'm going to press on here and just say the person for you to be in touch with is this amazing guy, Michael Seawall. He is your contact at the 47th Ward Green Council. He is the person I work most closely with. And if you want to get involved, he's very, very open. He wants people to get involved. So we invite you to reach out to him. You can email him or call him. He's very accessible. I will say Michael is very busy. So if you don't hear from him for a day or two, take heart, he will get back to you. He's very conscientious, and we're just really grateful to have him. And so I'm going to kind of move along in the presentation, because I want to just say that these are kind of the next steps. So it's kind of getting started. What do? We need to kind of address our own climate crisis temperature. How do we feel about it? Where do you stand? Where do you stand in yourself? Or do you stand in your household, your community? Just, are you hot to it, cold to it? You know, so where do you stand? And then kind of looking at what we can do in our own background, in our places of work, and in our workplaces of play. And then really reaching out to these local initiatives. And I think that, you know, for our church, we're going to start a Bethany Climate Crisis Working Group. We know that Pilgrim is already a green church. You've already done a lot, but I've had many conversations and heard a lot from a person that I know is very thoughtful and active in this area, Emanuel Johnson, and so I think I want to conclude my presentation right now by saying how grateful I am to be here. We really need to have boots on the ground, and I know we have really good warriors who can do it. I have confidence. We are the Davids to the Goliath. David had confidence, and I think that we have wonderful, confident young people to help us in all this. So at that note, thank you, Emanuel.
Yay, and Rich.
All right, so I put together 2 slides about what youth can specifically do to fight climate change.
Great.
So,
do you want to stop sharing for,
Oh, yes.
for a moment? You want to share yours, Emanuel?
What? Those are the 2 slides right there.
Oh, those are the, oh, okay, sorry, I'm sorry. No, don't stop sharing. This is a slide, I'm sorry. Okay, wonderful.
Right, so youth can spread awareness of the climate crisis through social media. It doesn't matter which media platform you use or how many media platforms you use, any will work. And also, if you can, bike or run instead of driving somewhere or taking the train. Next slide. Additionally, you can also talk about climate change with your friends and family, so all of us are reminded and aware of the problem. And any awareness or shrinking of our greenhouse gas footprint helps. And finally, feel free to learn more about the causes and consequences of climate change. There's so much more to learn about climate change. Even this slide didn't say everything.
Great.
Thank you, Emanuel.
Thank you, Emanuel. And then another youth group member, Nathan Ruger, does a lot with composting too, and I'm sure he would love to talk with you about it. And then there's lots of other opportunities for youth around. Emmanuel's part of the youth council at the Shedd Aquarium that does a lot of cleanups on beaches and other places. And Nathan Ruger is part of the youth council at the Lincoln Park Zoo, which is also very caring about the environment and creatures. And then I think you have joined at your high school, the recycling club, right? That helps with recycling. Yeah. There's a lot of those groups of people that care about recycling at schools and at workplaces. And another wonderful contact in our church is Jean Carroll, whose husband has worked a lot on Montrose Point Bird Sanctuary, and a lot of youth enjoy, and we do too, going out there. So there's lots more that could be said. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I do want to say I am remiss. I do have to say I'm remiss in not introducing the fact that Michael Seawall said that really any of the programs that we described today would welcome youth. You know, that whether it's the pop-ups or the youth participation, he felt would be welcome throughout. So there are some programs that are specific for youth, but that the whole playing field is very welcoming to the young people, and I'm excited about that. I would like to see Emanuel future conversations to talk about more specific things, and maybe in more depth, maybe a future dialogue about it, so that people can understand the depth of it more clearly and can be more active.
Wonderful.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ann Ridge. Could we name for a moment what's happening with the green team right now here at Pilgrim?
Please.
Yeah, Mark, can you speak to that?
Till I get rid of my screen here, I'm going to stop sharing then. Hold on. There.
And you can talk about the green team at Pilgrim School too, right? Okay.
So At our church and school, one thing we've done is to partner with ComEd, who has a program to change old style light bulbs, whether fluorescent or Edison style, to LED. And while you would need to pay for the installation, they would, ComEd would supply the bulbs. So we've changed 2,000 bulbs
Wow,
throughout the school and church.
excellent.
And so hopefully that will help decrease the amount of energy that we require for this institution.
Excellent. That's amazing. Thank you. And do you have some other projects in the wings too?
So one thing that we all can benefit from is using items that are reusable, not one-time use. So plates that can be washed, cups that can be washed, not cups that are constantly used and thrown away for one purpose,
Yeah,
one use.
yeah,
And that just throughout this community and throughout the world, we have to work more toward that. So
yeah.
having a dishwasher so we could use our own cups and our own bowls.
Yeah. That's awesome. And people could talk to you if they want to be part of that green team, right?
Yep.
Is there a next meeting right now? Or?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you for that. And then Pilgrim Lutheran School also has a green team coordinated by teacher Andrew Urich. And he's always looking for people to stay after school for that, and is so inspired by the people that stay. And Xavier has been staying for these meetings.
Tuesdays.
Can you? It's Tuesdays right after school, right?
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit what the Pilgrim School Green Team is up to so far?
We're trying to partner with another company to make a video about helping the environment, and if we make it, we might get some money, and then we can donate it to like economic companies who can help the environment.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And does Andrew Urich still coordinate the Worms project?
No.
Okay, but that went on for many years, right?
Yeah.
Compost.
Composting,
Sorry,
yeah.
not economic, environmental.
Environment, great, good.
And one thing I would like to say, first of all, thank you very much to you and Hannah
Yes.
for your presentation. One thing I would, in terms of just general mindset, is to, the points that were made about if we're going to make this change, it needs to be a World War II level of change. One thing that we've known about World War II is that it was not a grassroots effort. World War II changed because, or that level of change happened because governments were driving the change. And since 1978, when scientists around the world were saying this is going to be a giant problem, it in this country has been a grassroots effort. And we cannot rely on just the actions that good folks in the 47th Ward and youth who are trying to bicycle more or accomplish more. It really requires governments around the world to drive this change. Because we're losing World War II if it's a grassroots effort.
We need to hold politicians and people in power accountable.
Yeah, because politicians try to drive change that we personally cannot.
And like, I know that this
Speak louder for them to hear. The mic is
Like-
right here.
70% of the pollution in this world comes from like 100 companies.
Yeah.
So like, just figure, and like just as consumers, that is even maybe stronger than a vote sometimes. We can choose who we're gonna support.
Right.
Yeah, I think that the voting aspect of it is the real key. I mean, I think that what we do in our daily lives informs who we vote for too. I think that it's a big process, but I think they are larger systems that have to be addressed. But I think that we have young people have to be aware of how to address them. I mean, not be afraid of their legislators and not be afraid to vote and not be afraid to make what they want known. It's their world. I mean, I'm 68 years old. I'll be gone. But the world that they'll inherit, they have to learn how to vote for people who will stand up for what they believe in. And I hope that they will. I think voting is really important.
The big problems we're looking at are 80 years from now. I'm dead. So this is about my children, their children, and their children. Not me.
It really is. It really is. And we created this world. We let it happen. So I have sort of a generational sense of responsibility to try to do something.
I'd like to piggyback on what Hope said about companies. Because like those, companies building electric vehicles are not doing it because they want to or because it's good for their bottom line. They're doing it because consumers, us, are demanding it. So yes, put pressure on governments, but I think pressure on corporations as well through choices in what you purchase, as well as asking them, I want you to do this in the future. And I work for an airplane company. So I'm like, we have to come up with, airplane fuel that is sustainable or, aircraft that don't suck up all this jet fuel.
That is
so
very
I think companies are also a big part of that.
It's
Well said.
so hard.
Go ahead, Manuel. Speak a little louder.
Airplanes are they're a very hard thing to make less polluting because you can't, like a car, it can run off of a lithium battery, but if a plane tried to but a plane physically cannot fly with just lithium batteries. So engineers are getting really creative with trying to figure out how to make flying more green. They're thinking about maybe using hydrogen as fuel, but hydrogen in a fuel in a way where it only emits steam. And there's also they're also thinking about using algae, because then because algae absorbs carbon. And they're also trying, but for now, they're trying to find something they could mix with kerosene. So it's like half, so it like cuts the emissions by half.
Interesting. Thank you.
Any other comments or thoughts people want to share? Or...
We have 12 more minutes.
Oh, okay. We got till 10 o'clock. Okay.
You can help the environment by donating to non-profitable companies for it.
Sierra Club, ACE.
You want to say that louder?
Sierra Club, ACE.
What's ACE?
ACE is an organization that tries to get people to sign petitions or comment that would be against a new oil drill happening, or one of their campaigns is to bring back the Tonggrass National Park, which got shrunken by half during President Biden, Trump's presidential election. And they also have a YouTube channel. There's also the Environmental Voter Project, where you can do phone baking.
Tell us more about your YouTube channel, EJ.
I have a YouTube channel that raises awareness on critically endangered species.
That fact really hit me in the first presentation in like, what was it, 80 years? 50% of land animals can become extinct.
Yes.
You
very
want to
sad.
elaborate on that? Or?
Yes, what we're trying to prevent with reversing climate change is a mass extinction event that will also kill us. So yeah, there's no other option than to just reverse climate change as soon as possible.
That's very scary.
Right. Because we are all animals, you know. We think extinctions don't apply to us.
Huh, yeah.
We're part of the animal family.
Not only fund if you fund non-profitable companies, but you can also fund new ways for renewable energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are many things that are not being funded that can easily help
True.
the environment.
I would say a new interpretation, a better interpretation of God's word. And that when I grew up, the idea that humans were to have dominion over the earth, going back to Genesis. Now we know that's a mistranslation. Really, we are to steward.
Yeah.
So that is a very different call to action in the book of Genesis.
I really like what Anne Ridge said about the book she was reading and how like the first call is like to tend to the garden. It's one of the first things God told Adam to tend to the garden.
Yeah, thank you. Hope that book Cathedral on Fire is really very good because it's, as he's suggesting, it realigns our thinking from a domination perspective to a shepherding and a cooperative and a more responsible perspective. I think the book Cathedral on Fire is very good for people involved in churches to really kind of rethink our role as Christians, what that responsibility entails. Good book. It's not very expensive. It's $8. It's a skinny little book. Very worthwhile reading. You know, I want to, going back to the idea of systems and changes that have to be done both by government systems and business economics. I mean, we really need to look at the whole picture. You can't isolate different areas because government and economics really are really inseparable in so many ways. But this Illinois Environmental Council, I do want to suggest going to that website, because if you wanted to zero in on the ways that these systemic changes can be made, for instance, one of the things that they're very involved with are getting on board with electrifying trucks and buses, all public transportation, how to make those changes. Those are big changes. Or also, there's another part of it that's really important in Illinois, is looking at legislation and climate strategies dealing with agriculture. Sometimes when we're here in Chicago, we don't remember that we are a massive agricultural giant in Illinois. We are to in Illinois, our corn and soy is to Illinois what oil is to Saudi Arabia. I mean, we are extraordinary. And so if our agriculture can be addressed and climate change and sustainable working with farmers could be addressed legislatively, that would be an enormous change. And that's something that requires legislation. It requires people to be involved. The thing is that, you know, it's just true. 80% of getting something done is showing up. They have to show up. And I'll say, I worked in government in pretty responsible jobs for 31 years. And I can tell you the people who got stuff done were the people who showed up. If you don't show up, it will not happen. It just won't. But if you show up, it's the only way to make it happen. So I suggest you all, as he suggested, really, and the whole idea of it's our companies, it's what we consume, it's how we consume, it's the marketplace. The marketplace is a very powerful thing in this country. We can't get around it. So we have to figure out how to move forth with this. And I think we've got some good people working on it. I'm going to remain hopeful, and I hope that you all pray on this and pray on. Let the Holy Spirit lead you.
Well, this is Judy, and I just wanted to mention that this is all very timely for us in Girl Scouts because we have a international organization called WAGS, which is the World Organization of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. And back in 2020, I talked to Mark and Michael about this before the whole COVID thing got crazy. The Girl Scout Council in Chicago was trying to do a green thing in May, and then COVID hit. But Girl Scouts had a big meeting internationally for women, girls that were under the age of 18 to find out what their biggest problem was that they thought internationally was the issue, and they said the environment. So this year, starting February 22nd, which is World Thinking Day, Girl Scouts is starting a new program called Our World, Our Equal Future, the Environment and Gender Equality. And for the next 3 years, every year, WAGS is going to be talking about a specific issue and having us get educated. So I talked to Anne yesterday. We were having our Girl Scout meeting, and there's like 7 young women who are internationally dealing with the inequality of women and girls, and just how the environment impacts everything. So, I mean, when I heard that yesterday and I read it in the bulletin thing on Thursday, it was like, this is amazing. So I just wanted to just share that this year Girl Scouts is really also getting involved in trying to educate young women and girls on how to work towards climate control changes and environmental issues, especially plastics.
It's very encouraging.
Yeah. And it really, every time we poll the confirmation youth group, what are they concerned about too? We come up with the environment again and again, right? And here at
Yes.
Pilgrim. So.
All right. Well, I think we're at about time. Were you going to say something? So I think we're at about time. So maybe we can close in a prayer. How does that sound, Anne and Hannah? All right. You guys could have a celebrity couple name, right? Anna. All right, Hannah, Ann. All right, why don't we pray? And Emanuel, you want to start us off with a prayer?
Yes.
Okay, let's pray. Bow our heads, close your eyes.
God, we pray for all of us to have a wake-up call and do what we need to do, and work together to end climate change, to reverse climate change, and that we don't give up, no matter how small our impact our work seems to do. And we pray for companies and the government to start valuing life over any amount of money, over any amount of power, and that we for the sake of for the sake of the poor, for the sake of the oppressed, for our own sake, for our planet's biodiversity's sake, we solve this.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to thank you for the momentum we already have with the partnership with Bethany and Ann and Hannah, with Andrew Urich, keeping the green team going on the school part of our community, and also for Mark Hassler on the school church part of the community. We thank you that every light that is shining on us right now was recently replaced to be energy efficient. And God, help us to keep the momentum going. Help us to stick with these wonderful leaders in conversation, and let more and more good things happen, not only for Pilgrim and for Bethany, but beyond Pilgrim, in this city, in this country, and in this world. We pray all this in your holy name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
All right, let's give Anna and Hannah and Anna and Ann a hand.
It's so encouraging that everyone showed up. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, really great. So happy to see everybody.
Careful with the camera so they can see.
Yeah, I'm gonna do one
Yeah.
more. Now I can unplug this. I can unplug this. All right, so everyone wave to Hannah and Ann.
Hey, thank you.
Oh, great. Great.
Very much. Thank you.
Yes.
Emanuel. Good job. Thank you. Yeah.
Please eat some food, people.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work together with the refugee projects too. Thank you all.
Oh, thank
Great
you.
job on this faith partnership.
Really grateful.
Thank you. It's an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you so much.
And one of our youth, too, who comes and volunteers at Hot Meals, is part of Old St. Pat's church and youth group, and maybe that would be another possible connection to share with Catholic churches too.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
We'd love it. Hannah and I are on for it.
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you so
see you
much.
soon. Have a good
bless
day.
you.
God bless you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Hannah.